In an honest and deeply personal way surprise, Whoopi Goldberg has broken her silence about her cancer in 2024 analysis, giving a real look into the effects on the mind and body of the sickness. The Oscar winner, 70 years old, she is an actress, comedian, and co-host of The View, said that the experience was a deep problem that changed her outlook in life, being vulnerable, and being human, having pain. Now, after months off handling and thought, Goldberg is speak out to take the mystery out of the sickness and encourage others going through the same as problems. The news came as a surprise during a normal checkup in the beginning of 2024, catching shocked the star because she was so busy timetable. Illness is only a dream until you get really sick, spoke to People magazine in an interview with no one else. And when something bad happens to you, you see the pain of others, their pain, and their hopelessness and sorrow. She said, but I don't see it as a fight. Shared, stressing a philosophy of choose acceptance over battle. Back then, he was spinning in New York City at her work on The View and other projects that helped people when the news messed up her routine. Goldberg's is the trip began with mild signs, constant tiredness, and not knowing why weight dropped that she first credited to her busy lifestyle. A series of tests found a rare form of type of cancer that affects the uterus, what lines the uterus, and is often having to do with hormones. In line with endometrial cancer, the American Cancer Society, over 67,000 women have cancer every year in the U.S., with early screening offering a high chance of life. Goldberg is lucky that the disease didn't spread, caught at stage 2, which made it possible for as soon as possible. All-around a group of the best doctors at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York, Goldberg went through a mix of radiation, treatment, and surgery therapy. She thanks the medical help she got system for getting through the tough process, but how she felt about cancer stays refreshingly out of the ordinary. It's fun to talk about what the illness has taught me, not about myself, but about other people, when she told them that she felt bad seeing them hurt. I've seen them hurt, and I find that it can be hard and sometimes very moving. Cancer care, the rooms are very harsh. You're dealing with people who can't protect themselves, who are weak, like themselves. If you see a young woman with kids, it's horrible. Since I'm old, I've done everything that was worth it. It wouldn't work. It will be sad if I die. It's a tragedy, but not for a long time. This view comes from Goldberg's after decades of being in the news, where she's talked about tough subjects with being honest and funny. Always happy, even when someone bites. Whoopi Goldberg lets out aspirate and isn't afraid to show it, like she did on the set of the One Old Show. Talking to a group about health issues, she joked about stigmas and signed her name "Wit." I know it makes you mad. I really do, that you'll have to deal with it. That's it, she said with an unhappy look from a guest, someone who rolled his eyes before. Yeah, okay. Let's try the referring to a fun change the focus to cooking. The time caught Goldberg's skill at blending lightness and depth. During her fight, Goldberg has leaned on her family, which included Alex Martin as my daughter and kids, to help them feel better. Her faith has also helped her and a good attitude. They often meditate and exercise to help them deal with side effects of the treatment, such as nausea and hair thinning. Cancer doesn't make me who I am. It's only a new chapter, she told reporters at an event to raise money for the American Cancer Society. People. Fans like how open she is, with lots of posts on social media of showing support with words like #BeWhoopiStrong. As she keeps an eye on her, Goldberg's story about his health after treatment emphasizes how important regular tests, especially for women over 50. Endometrial cancer is something that experts say being overweight, having diabetes, medicine for hormones. However, early signs this kind of unusual bleeding can lead to prompt diagnosis. How much Goldberg is worth? Worth about $60 million from her multifaceted job, has given people access to high-end care, but she fights for fair access to health care. Not all of them have what I have. That is something we need to fight for. When she thought about what had happened, Goldberg is still hopeful. I've learned to enjoy the little things, the love, the laughs, and the tuna. She laughed at sandwich jokes. The findings not only make Abe a Hollywood star, but also shine a light on the challenges of those who everyone touched by cancer, which makes us remember being vulnerable can lead to deep kindness. This has happened before. A famous figure has looked down at brutal problem. Let's go back to Whoopi Goldberg's rough path through life. From the hard times she had as a child to the battles that aren't said, And inner heartbreaks, those things made Hollywood brave the world knows it as a powerhouse today. Karina Lane Johnson was born on November 13th, 1955, that was born in the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan, is in New York City. Her mom, she worked as a nurse and a teacher. This is her dad. Robert James Johnson Jr. was a minister, a Baptist preacher who they should have been a rock in the family. Instead, he left them behind. When she was young, her dad left. He left Emma and their two kids. Karen with her big brother Clyde. There was no warning or reason that child could understand. Just left. She had to take care of two kids by herself, in one of the most American cities. They moved into there is public housing at Elliott Chelsea houses that work on West 26th Street. It wasn't not even low-income homes. It was getting by amount of poverty. She lived in a building work on a project in New York City with her, the record says, brother and mother clearly. But those words don't show what it was like to be poor in the 1950s in New York City in the 1960s. Emma did workmany jobs just to keep food on the tabletable. She worked as a nurse. She changed into a Head Start teacher. She did everything took. But even though she works all the time, we did not have enough money for things. There wasn't always enough money for the basics. Young Karen can remember what it was felt like the poor kid which one couldn't pay for what the other kids had. The one who was different, fighting, being left behind. What I remember, I felt pretty when I was a kid, kept safe. I wasn't scared. Whoopi would after that say, but there's a difference between feeling safe in your body and getting the things you need to live. Emma loved her kids and looked out for them, but she couldn't keep them safe from the truth about poverty. After that came school, which is where her childhood would be marked by problems. From the first days of school, Karen had trouble writing and reading. While some kids looked at words, Karen saw them on a page and understood them, letters mixed up that wouldn't stay still. She did her best. But it didn't make sense. When I was young, they didn't call it dyslexia, Whoopi in the future. It was called being slow, or you were this, is what her teachers called her. That's what it said on the paper. What she said thought about herself for years. I was for a big part of mine based on all the papers, and Whoopi said he just couldn't handle it. In 1991, Ebony magazine. The terrible irony is this, though. Karen wasn't stupid. She knew she wasn't. If you read, he could tell you everything that she told me you read. Her complete understanding was shown. Her intelligence was still there. But she couldn't figure out what letters on a page the way most kids could. She was tagged, thrown out, and forgotten about that. Her mom, Emma, knew what was going on. My mom told me that. Everyone told me I wasn't stupid or not smart. Whoopi took note. But when your teachers treat you like Yuri label on official papers is brokinas, when you're going to fall more and more behind your friends, I don't think you're smart. They had no idea what it was. They knew I wasn't laziness. But what was it? Whoopi said, it was dyslexia, a mental disability that makes it hard for the brain reads and understands writing. But in the 1960s, dyslexia wasn't well known. That's right. They did not know how to find it or make room for it. So, just like Karen, other kids were called ups. It was awful going to school. Every day made her remember that I wasn't able to do what everyone else could. Each lesson proved that she was right. That was strange, slow, and broken. By 17, Karen was done. She quit from high school. One more was too much for her. That day of being told she was stupid and upset, was bored with seeing other kids do well while she had a hard time. Because of this, she quit school when she was 17. The records say, 17 years old and has no diploma, no job possibilities, and no clear way forward. It was just a girl who had been told she wasn't good her whole life. Enough. After that, things got even worse. After getting off of high, Karen went downhill at school. She had a teen with no schooling and no skills that society thought was important, an hurt sense of self-worth. Everyone told her she was stupid. She couldn't because school told her not to. She thought she could achieve, so she used drugs. In the 1960s, Goldberg quit high school, and she became hooked on drugs, her life says. But that wordy languagito is to show how teens really live drug abuse in New York City in the 1960s. Karen did not use drugs for fun, not as an experiment. She became hooked. She was on heroin. Get away. She didn't do anything when she was high. I feel stupid. She didn't want to be a failure. She didn't have to deal with the truth about her life, the poverty, the status of quitter, the lack of choices, The feeling useless is a crushing weight. Goldberg was lucky because she had Amather who told her she wasn't stupid and could become, and Dune's story says she got anything she wanted. But Emma's love and support helped chemical pull was too strong for them to handle that are addicted to opioids. Karen had trouble. She was a kid back then, locked up in drugs in her early 20s, living in public housing and keeping an eye on her let life slip away before it had really begun to start it. Then when she was at her worst, she got pregnant. Karen met a man in 1973, a guy named Alvin Martin. He wasn't a boyfriend in the usual sense of the word. He was the guy who helped her with drugs, chosen to help her clean up. Think about how that works. A young woman, barely 18 and hooked on drugs, weak and in need of help, and a man who was in charge gets married to him. In 1973, Karen got married to Alvin Martin. She was 18 years old at the time. Year she gave birth to their daughter. Alexandria Martin was known as Alex. A year after that, Goldberg had Alexandria, my daughter. Not even a year after that, she split up with him. The biography says, in fact, Karen and Alvin was married for 6 years, splitting up in 1979. It was hard on the marriage, though it had to be true. She was a teen, an abuser who was getting better, a new mother who was poor. He was fine. We don't know a lot about Alvin Martin. He mostly vanished from public view. What we do after the breakup. Karen was now single. Mother with a young daughter, not high of a high school education, a job, and she had no options. So she got welfare. Years. Karen Johnson got a lot of attention aid, food stamps, and housing support, just enough to keep her going and Alex still alive. And the whole time, she was plagued by the same inquiries. How did I get here? Why can't I do better? Where am I going wrong? To add to her to get welfare payments, Karen did a number of odd jobs. Jobs that don't require college degrees, jobs that pay less than the minimum wage. People look down on her. She worked as a bank teller. You deal with other people's money while having almost none of her. She worked alone as a bricklayer on job places for building. One of the few women in a mostly male field doing hard, back-breaking work. What's more, she worked as a makeup artist who worked in a morgue and put on makeup to dead bodies, getting bodies ready for their final resting scene. Think about that job. The smell, the truth of death, the mentally draining it is to spend your days with the dead person. She had to take care of her kid by do work as a bank worker, a bricklayer, and a funeral home worker. There is a record that she was also on welfare. For a few years. However, none of these jobs were long-term. None of them gave me a way out of the were poor and trying to stay alive. It's hard to pay the rent and buy food. In existence not lived much. And through it all, Karen only wanted to be an actor. Karen made a choice when she was 20 years old that she moved to California, but not to Los Angeles. The movie business did well, but to Berkeley, where the play took place, alive and trying new things. She was poor as a child in New York, and they chose to move to California when they were young. Adult to start her job as a performer. It says in the records that in Berkeley, she joined a number of acting groups. She learned how to act and appeared in improvisation groups, and she made characters and set up a stage presence. And she learned something interesting. She came on stage. It wasn't Karen Johnson, who dropped out of high school, and she was someone else because she couldn't read, someone sure of themselves, someone respected. That was during this time that she made her stage name is Whoopi Cushion. Really, like the fart joke toy. During this time, her name was Whoopi Cushion, sometimes getting her name wrong, Cushion, as if it were French. The life notes were kept by everyone that we called her Whoopi for short. She decided she needed a better way to sell her stuff. For her last name, she picked Goldberg, a Jewish last name that would make her look better, appealing to a larger group of people. Karen Johnson was born, as well. She turned into a character that the real someone could hide behind in the 1980s. Whoopi made a show with just her. That's something that would become famous, different characters, each one tackling using comedy to deal with tough social problems and trouble. There was a black girl who liked blonde hair that was straight, a country girl who is hooked on drugs who had an illegal abortion, a crippled person woman having trouble with her self-image, and a Jamaican woman trying to figure out who she is and style. The show was honest. To be honest, it was awkward. Amazing. Whoopi put on the show in small houses, becoming known for a brave and creative artist. And then there was Mike Nichols. The Nichols was the director who saw her perform. Shocked. He talked Whoopi into bringing the show to New York City. Back in 1984, Whoopi Goldberg went straight from Broadway, opened, and caused a stir. This show was filmed for HBO, and Steven spoke to a huge group of people. Steven Spielberg saw that HBO show, and he chose to have Whoopi in his next movie called The Color Purple. In 1985, Color Purple came out, and Whoopi played Look, a black woman who was abused in the country South who finds her voice and strength that it was a tough, heartbreaking, transformative performance. And Whoopi, in her first big movie part, was put forward for an Academy Award for Best Performer. She didn't get the prize. Margaret Avery, who played Shug in the same movie, was also put forward. Geraldine Page won for The Trip to Bountiful Wong, but the just getting the nod made Whoopi into becoming a Hollywood star. Finally, after years out of poverty, after getting help, after being told her she was going to drop out in school, and having a hard time with addicts and people who work in dead-end jobs, it looked like Whoopi had made it. What worked in Hollywood didn't work in happiness in your personal ties. People thought Whoopi would have a boyfriend, to get married, and to settle down. Wow. Whoopi was so eager to fit in that she tried to follow through. She got married in 1986. David Clausen, a Dutch film director. They were married for 2 years and then split up. In 1988. Look, everyone expects you to have a boyfriend. They want you to get, I'm married, Whoopi told the New York Times magazine in 2019. So I thought Edie didn't want to share that, but I did that. Telling someone else about it. Whoopi didn't really want the key, or her heart was set on getting married. She was eager to get married and follow the norm, but she didn't fit the mold. In 1992, Whoopi started a very public relationship with Ted Danson, the white star of Thanks. They met on the set of Made in America. Their mixed-race bond caused a stir and a lot of public attention, but the relationship didn't end. They broke up in 1993, and Whoopi went on and married Lyle in 1994. Trachtenberg, an actress and a party planner. This marriage lasted 1 year. They split up in 1995. I knew in the first month of being married that Whoopi said it wasn't going to work. After years, I'd ask myself, what do you need to know about my plans? I don't want someone to ask me why I'm not at work. It took 3 weddings and 3 divorces to every time. Whoopi felt better when they was over. I was prancing and dancing that I was so happy to leave. Whoopi told her it was always their co-hosts on the show because I believed you didn't wish to carry out this task from the meaning of giddy up. Whoopi was never meant to get married, tried it 3 times to make society happy and hopes, but every time she felt being bound, suffocating, and wanting to get away. I tried marriage and it wasn't for me. You can't be married because everyone is counting on you too, she said. Whoopi has been single for 69 years, decades, and she's finally happy with that. Whoopi was in Ghost in 1990 as Oda Mae Brown, a fake psychic who finds out that she does have powers. It was an extra part in a movie that could have been easy to forget, but it wasn't. Became a big deal in culture, and Whoopi's show was the best part of it. When the Oscars came around, Whoopi won the Oscar for her the award for Best Supporting Actor, the second black woman in history to win an acting award 50 years after Hattie the movie Gone with the Wind won. Being there on stage with the golden figure made Whoopi think of the kids at school called her the papers that called her slow. She felt like her school gave up on her, had won an Oscar. They were wrong. Not until Whoopi was an adult, after she stopped going to school after years of drug use, after getting welfare and odd jobs, and finally making it, that she found out the real reason she was not able to read. A man wrote while she was at a show sentence on a board, and something about the way he talked about how dyslexic brains work process information clicked. I found out from a man who was running a test, and he had written something on a board. What did Whoopi remember? Finally, after decades, she knew what was going on. She wasn't stupid. She wasn't lazy. Her mind was just set up that way differently. I think it might have made me more deeply reflective, gave me a little more time to think that I do things more slowly because it sometimes takes me a minute to figure it out. Whoopi talked about how she had dyslexia, but by the time when she found out what was wrong, the harm was been done. A whole childhood spent being called a whole adolescence. She thought she was broken for years, lost to drugs and hopelessness because didn't know why she couldn't get good grades. If she had been found to be a child, if teachers had knew about dyslexia, if accommodations had been made, how different would she be now? How has your life been? I'm 70 years old today. Whoopi Goldberg is one of the best. She's one of the most successful entertainers living. EGOT winner and a popular co-host on The View. She has enough money, well known and admired, But how much did it cost? A childhood marked by being poor and wrong diagnosis. The years that were marked us it was hard for schools to understand autism. Point 3 drugs that almost killed her to failed marriages because she made herself to meet the standards of society. For decades, she thought she was stupid. Whoopi built a kingdom, but she built it on the remains of a girl who was told she would never not be worth much. You don't want to build your life, Whoopi said. But she showed she wasn't. She proved it to her masters and to everyone else. But that proof cost her a lot. The years lost, the pain felt, and the struggles lived on. But those scars never did to fully heal. Whoopi Goldberg is 70 years old, everything that everyone else thinks she should want. She also has to deal with the stress of the girl who dressed in potato sacks, who couldn't read, who she left behind father, who used drugs to get away the hurt of not being worthy. Being successful didn't get rid of Karen Johnson. It just gave her a staged voice. She could show everyone what she was made of. Not right. And maybe in the end that's enough.